anytime I've been over to somebody's house for Thanksgiving and I don't know them and they pull out the can of the weird cranberry stuff that is the shape of the can, I'm just like, this dinner's going to be horrible.
Oh my God.
So-
Okay. We're going to have,
come on.
we're going to have a problem right now.
Great. Yeah.
Thank
Oh my
seriously.
God.
Evan,
That
thank
stuff
you.
tastes like, that stuff tastes like taint. I mean, it's
No.
just.
Well, that's some
No, it
sweet
doesn't.
taste and taint then.
Yeah.
Give me those damn can ridges.
Yeah.
Wow.
How else am I going to know where to cut it?
Thank you.
My image of you two is totally blown.
It's plummeted.
It's a fairly common debate among people.
It really
It
is.
The people who are like either they're the can cranberry people or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a divisive issue.
I know. It's one of those things that you would think like, hey, live and let live, man. But no.
No.
No. It's more like live and let die.
It really is.
But the Guns N' Roses version.
Right.
Live and let die.
When you were young and your heart was an open book, you used to say.
Somewhere in the middle of Arizona, you painted a desert and
Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association as well.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yeah, you are.
Never gets old.
No.
So this week, like every week, we have some movies to talk about. We're going to be talking about Uncle Frank, Princess of the Row, Mystery of D.B. Cooper, or The Mystery of D.B. Cooper, rather, and Animals, which
Yeah.
is the film we're going to kick off the show with. So let's talk about Animals, a film that I saw and Evan. So this,
Hold on. I got to break in here. I saw about 10 minutes of it
oh,
because we were going to cover it last week.
we were?
And then we didn't because we had lots of movies last week and we had to pick and choose. And I had rented it and started watching it and got 10 minutes into it. And you guys were like, let's not do Animals. And I was like, all right, fuck it. And let me say, I didn't want to re-rent it. And I'm glad I didn't re-rent it because the 10 minutes I saw, I was like, nope. So that's where I come down.
Fair
All right.
enough. We'll talk more about our feelings in a moment, but Megan, it sounded like you were hurtling towards a plot summary.
Sorry.
I was hurtling very accurate, Evan. But Dave, I do love your interjection.
Thank you.
So Animals is directed by Sophie Hyde, and it is based on Emma Jane Unsworth's book, and she adapted her book into the screenplay. And it stars Holiday Granger and Alia Shawkat as two best friends who are living in Dublin, and they are drinking and drugging it up and having just the best time and having a ball. And Holiday Granger, who plays Laura, meets a guy who she really, really likes, and he becomes her boyfriend. But he is very serious about his music, and so he cuts back and stops drinking. And she's an aspiring writer, and she keeps on partying. But there's a tension between her partying lifestyle and her best friend, Tyler, who wants her to keep that lifestyle with her, and her, burgeoning relationship. So.
That's a good plot summary right
Thank
there.
you very much. So, Evan, we know what Dave thought of the film or the 10 minutes. So, Evan, what did you think of this?
See, I was enjoying the film in the opening 10 minutes. I thought it had some nice energy. I kind of liked where it might be going. But I'm going to be honest, this movie well overstayed its welcome with me.
Ooh.
Multiple times I found myself going, oh my God, is this movie still going? I can't believe it's still going. I feel like it had like 20 endings.
It really did. I hate to say this, but there was a part in the, I don't want to say the beginning of the film, but maybe like the first third. And I really thought I was almost done. And I'm like, we're only a third of the way through? Oh no.
Yikes. Yikes.
Yeah, that does not bode well. So I'm kind of frustrated by this film because I thought it had a great premise, because I always
Mhm.
drawn to female friendships, particularly complicated ones fraught with tension or, life changes. And I like
Mhm.
stereotype, and I hate the term likable character, but I do enjoy stereotypically unlikable characters, like characters who fuck up and do, shitty things. But you have
Mhm.
to make them really compelling or intriguing in some way. And
Yes.
I
Mhm.
do think Holiday Granger is really great in this. I actually really liked her a lot in this, and I kept kind of rooting for her, even though she kept fucking up. There was something about her I found really, really interesting and watchable. And I love Alia Shawkat normally, but in this, I just didn't. And I mean, she's an unlikable character. Like I said, that's fine. I like that. But what I had a problem with in this film is that they're best friends. They've been best friends for a decade. And, Laura has
Mhm.
been wanting to write, and she has this epiphany where she realizes, like, oh shit, we've known each other for 10 years and I've written like 10 pages, if that, of my novel. Like, I've written almost nothing.
Mhm.
And what am I doing with my life? And, Tyler is kind of complimentary to her. She's like, oh, well, you're a genius and you're great. You're such a great artist. But as the film wears on, we
Mhm.
see that she's not really a great friend to her. She's actually a really, really terrible, shitty friend to her. And she's like,
Yeah. They're both really shitty friends, though.
they are, but I think Tyler's the one who's really bad, because she's like, she stole her like journal and is reading it out loud at a party.
Mhm.
And that's awful. And she's like, telling her that she shouldn't be with her boyfriend. I mean, that's not necessarily so terrible, because I mean, if somebody's really terrible, if somebody's
Yeah.
not right, you in a good friendship, you should be able to say something. But it's the
Right.
only reason she doesn't think he's a good guy is because he's not partying as hard and he can't hold his liquor the way they can, which is an absurd
Mhm.
reason to not like someone. So yeah, and it's like Tyler has all these problems with the fact that Laura is getting married to this guy, but really her problem is the fact that, her, father died, and she's not really dealing with those feelings, and she doesn't want to be left behind. Which again, all sounds fascinating and like fodder for a really, really great film. And there are
Mhm. That doesn't materialize.
well, I do think there are really great moments. There are great scenes, great moments. But yeah, cohesively, it just doesn't all come together, unfortunately.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, I would argue that Holiday Granger, or Laura, her character's name, is the worst friend, because like you're talking about how Tyler's father dies, and she calls Laura, and Laura never picks up the phone, never returns the call, and then shows up like 2 days later at their apartment. I'm like, what kind of friend doesn't pick up the phone, doesn't call back, doesn't even text to say, hey, what's going on?
I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world, because
I mean, when your best friend reaches out to you, and I'm sure she's not the kind of person that calls tons,
that's
and you don't answer and you don't follow up, I think that's a shitty friend.
okay. Well, then I'm a shitty friend.
Oh,
I will
shots
say that.
fired.
I mean, it's an example of like one thing that I feel like she does, and I just feel like Laura abandons Tyler in a number of ways and does not seem to care about the impact of that on Tyler. Knowing who Tyler is and knowing that Tyler is kind of codependent, Loris doesn't seem to have any problems kind of ditching her.
See, and she is, you're absolutely right. She is codependent, but I think Tyler ditches Laura too. So both terrible to each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't need to debate how shitty both of them are, because they're both shitty.
Right. We're splitting hairs here. They're both pretty shitty. But I think that's my really, really big problem. Like if they had this, even if it was a bit codependent, which is, obviously not the healthiest thing, but if they had this really supportive, nurturing, friendship, like, and you are right that Laura is pretty shitty, because even if I don't think she's shitty for not, picking up the phone or texting back, she is incredibly shitty for not being extra nurturing and supportive after she does find out that Tyler's dad passed away. So, yeah, she like goes over and kind of like touches her back, and that's like, and and Tyler pushes her away because she's like, no, I'm fine, when she's clearly not. And then she's like, okay, just like bounces off. But I think that's my problem with this film, is that if they had this really nurturing, supportive, loving, kind of this unconditional love and support, I would have followed the whole film, like, with all their fuck ups, all their mistakes, all their whatevers, the fact that it's, slower film, all of that, if they had that core foundation, and they don't. And it's sad. But it is kind of an interesting, exploration and thought about what happens when you grow out of a friendship, or when, you want your life to change, but you're not exactly sure how to do it. Because it's very clear that Laura wants a different life. She doesn't want to keep drinking all the time. She wants to write her book. She wants to be in a healthy relationship, but it's very clear she doesn't quite know how to do it, and she can't quite shake, her old life. And so what do you do, when you outgrow someone? And so it is really interesting in that way. I just wish it kind of come together a bit more cohesively.
Yeah, agreed. This film just kind of drags on and on and on, and I don't think it needs to be so long. I mean, we know that Laura is going to sabotage her relationship. I mean, and then it turns out her fiance was cheating on her anyway. So she cheated on him, he cheated on her. They both suck. Again, we come back to the same point. Everybody sucks in this movie. Some way or another.
Yep.
I mean, maybe some of Laura's family doesn't suck. They seem like
nice.
Generally decent people. But yeah, I think that's a tough part of watching this movie. And you're right, Megan. Not everybody needs to be likable, but sometimes I need something to latch onto. But one last thing I wanted to mention and get your thoughts on was the whole like animals metaphor, like the cat and the fox. What the heck was that about? I didn't quite get where they were going with that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I don't know. I might be reading too much into this or putting too much thought into it, but I think it has something to do with, throughout the film, Tyler talks about how they're feminists, and so, they're not going to be caged in, and they're, my body, my choice, or actually, Laura says to her, her boyfriend, fiance, that, your body, your choice, when he doesn't want to drink. And I think it has something to do with that, like, and I don't know, I might be misreading it, but something to the effect of, animals are wild and they're just going to do what they want to do. And, we don't want to be, tied down, by patriarchal, heteronormative, marriage and gender roles. But I don't know. If that is the metaphor, if that is what it's trying to say, it doesn't really come together very well or very clearly.
No. If two of us watch the movie and are still not super clear on what they meant, then no, it did not come together clearly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think, but I don't know. I also didn't put a ton of thought into it because I just was really irritated. I wanted a better friendship, and I don't mean a healthier friendship. I wanted a more nurturing friendship or something, because it can't just be, hey, this is my buddy that I go, get shit-faced with and get high with every night. I don't know. I feel like I need something more than that. And you're right. Like the fact that we keep seeing the same scenes play over and over and over again, like the fact that they're getting so shit-faced, the fact that they're getting so high. Okay, but how many scenes of that do we need? So,
right.
Yeah, it felt very repetitive. And like I said, to me, it was so frustrating because if this was a lesser film, like if this didn't have good actors in it or if it didn't have a good premise, I wouldn't care. I'd just be like, yeah, this is shitty. Don't bother watching it. But I don't think that. I think it actually has really great actors. I think it could have been really fantastic because it has good scenes and moments. It's just, it's like so close, but just not there.
For me, it's a little farther, but I see what you're saying.
Fair enough. I hear you. Oh, the one last thing I want to talk about, the scene that really disturbed me is when Laura's holding her nephew and she spills wine on him, and because everyone's freaking out because she's like drinking and holding the baby, and then the wine gets spaced. Yeah. That really bothered me. But obviously, it's obviously it did its job. It elicited the right reaction from me.
As soon as she picked up that baby one-handed, I knew that something was going to go wrong.
Yeah, before she even went over, like as soon as she starts going over, I'm like, oh God, back away, back away. But yeah. So any other last thoughts on that?
No.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next film, which is the documentary Mystery of D.B. Cooper.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes,
It's
Mr.
not-
Riedel.
It's not really a question so much as a statement. The mystery is why anybody gives a fuck about DB. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to inject that in there.
So this is a documentary directed by John Dower, and it is exploring the actual mystery of D.B. Cooper, who was a plane hijacker, and it's the only unsolved plane hijacking in the U.S.
Yeah, this is not about
Mhm.
D. Cooper, who was like in that skating movie, The Cutting Edge. I was so bummed out.
But anyway, so what did the document?
Evan.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, Evan, we were talking about this off mic. Megan and I don't really know this story, but you know this story, right?
Yeah, I've always been really fascinated by the story of D.B. Cooper, and I think a lot of it, they are reasons that are discussed in the documentary. This idea that this guy hijacked this plane, he stole $200,000, he jumped out of the plane with a parachute, and no one knows what happened to him definitively, whether he died, whether he got away with the money. It's just, I think, a really fascinating mystery. And I grew up seeing this on shows like Unsolved Mysteries and other kinds of shows of that ilk. And so I was always fascinated, like overall with the story, but also kind of from the angle that they discuss in the documentary of this being kind of like a little bit of a Robin Hood-y kind of thing, even though it's not. Arguably, it's just, I don't know, there's a mythology to it that I've always found super interesting. So I was really interested to see this documentary, and I think I had known about some of the suspects in this case. Like I had known about the suspect number one that they discuss, who I personally think is probably one of the stronger
Which
suspects.
suspect is that?
Gosh, I'm totally gotta pull up his name.
Oh,
Uncle
it's
John-
Dwayne
Uncle-
Weber.
Dwayne Weber. Yeah, I've heard of Dwayne Weber before as a suspect in this case, and I think he's probably the strongest. I think suspect number one and suspect number two, who is Barbara Dayton. I think those two, for me, based on the evidence that I know of and the stuff that we learned about in the documentary, I think are the strongest possible candidates for being DB Cooper. If they are even DB Cooper, no one fucking knows. But so yeah, so I was aware of some of that information, and so I liked kind of seeing all of that teased out. But that said, I think there's probably more compelling ways that could have been put together.
Yeah.
It kind of jumps around a lot, and I don't love how it kind of jumps around introducing the different suspects and kind of drops one person and comes back to them later. It feels, I would say, pretty disorganized. And I think that's probably my main beef with the documentary, is that it feels kind of scattershot between its coverage of the suspects, how it's got talking heads, it's got, reenactments. It's kind of just like a mixed bag of documentary stuff. And while I was watching, Dave, you had a really hilarious thing that you noticed that I would love for you to share, because I did not see this and I died laughing once you pointed
Oh,
it
sure.
out.
So there's this guy who wrote a book about one of the DB Coopers, or whoever DB Cooper is, or whatever. I don't remember his name,
Bruce
but
Smith.
he lives. Thank you,
You're
Bruce
welcome.
Smith. He lives in the woods in a camper that is, of course, like
Mhm.
stuffed to the gills with papers and documents, and then there's all just kinds of stuff outside. And
Mhm.
I mean, a mountain man with internet access. But he's being interviewed, talking head interview, kind of from the waist up. And then I'm just watching it and I'm like, there's a half-eaten sandwich on the table next to him. It's like, what? And I don't know what that says about the movie, except that if I'm thinking about this guy's half-eaten sandwich during his interview, then maybe this isn't the most compelling documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But at the same
no.
time,
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that the director wasn't like, hey, finish that sandwich. Just fucking left it there. And then
You can eat a bite between
Yeah.
takes, but just one
And then a
bite.
scene later, you see Bruce Smith outside his cabin munching on the sandwich, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this wasn't just an idle half-eaten sandwich."
Glad we got some resolution on the sandwich.
Yeah,
The mystery.
we
of the
don't know who
sandwich.
DB Cooper is, but we know what happened to that
No.
sandwich.
Oh my God. Ugh, Dave, I'm so glad you mentioned the sandwich because it's such a great point. I found this such a formulaic documentary. I was not interested at all. And the sad thing is that this is an interesting story. It is
Yeah.
very interesting, but this was not
Mhm.
told in an interesting way. And it was really frustrating. I do not like reenactments as a rule, so I will say that right up front. And there's one time when I thought the reenactment actually worked. And it's kind of tense. It's when DB Cooper is jumping out of the plane, or right before he jumps out, and they show the cockpit and they show the plane, and that was tense. And I thought that was really well done. But other than that, I thought all of the other reenactments were a waste. I don't think they were necessary at all.
Yeah.
But I need to talk about my biggest
Mhm.
problem with this film.
Okay.
Okay, talking about Barbara Dayton, so Barbara Dayton is a trans woman, and fucking
Yes.
God, there is so much goddamn transphobia in this film. Gendering of her, they dead name her, they
Yes.
show her photos pre-transition. It's disgusting. Can't control, obviously, where an interview is going to go or what someone's going to say, but the fact that they left this in, and the fact that the filmmaker, you hear him throughout the film interviewing the people he's talking to, the talking heads, the fact that he actually corrects someone and corrects them in a way that is misgendering, and it's appalling to me, appalling, and it was so gross. I wanted to cut the film off right
It's
then.
icky.
I'm like, this is a disgusting film.
Yeah, that was something that didn't sit well with me either, and it just it felt icky every time they brought up Barbara Dayton as a suspect. Although I found as a suspect that Barbara Dayton could be a compelling suspect based on her knowledge and
Oh,
experience.
sure. Yeah,
as a
no,
pilot.
absolutely. I don't have a problem with that, but just the way it was handled was just so awful. Oh my God.
it's
It is.
gross.
It's disgusting.
It's that did not sit well with me the entire time. I just it was so icked
It's
out.
horrible.
One thing I can't believe I forgot to mention this, and this is something that really hurt me, was they talk early in the documentary about the fact that DB Cooper announced his presence as the plane was taking off. And the pilots talk about how it was too late to stop the plane from taking off. But the documentary literally does nothing to explain why it was too late for the plane to be
I
taken
thought
off.
about that
because
too.
basically
Yep.
he announces his presence as the plane is like still on the tarmac, from my understanding. So I don't understand why it was quote unquote too late. And it literally could have taken one or two extra lines, but why would you not explain such an important detail?
I have an answer. Because you're a crummy filmmaker. I mean, I don't know if
That's a
that's
good
what it is,
explanation.
but that's my guess.
Yeah. So that was I know I said the mixed, formats and lack of cohesive story was my biggest gripe, but that's actually, if I rewind, my biggest gripe, then followed by the misgendering and the transphobia.
God.
Because I mean,
God.
I got to be annoyed about the most minuscule
Well,
thing, right?
Here's I guess this actually says a lot about how I felt about it, because I was so disconnected from this whole thing. First of all, the thing that I noticed most was the sandwich. Second, I had no idea that there was any misgendering going on. I didn't hear the director talk to any of the interview subjects. So
Oh,
I
wow.
must have been tuned the fuck out,
You must have been.
because I didn't notice any of that shit. I was just like, oh, another interview? Great. Next. Just like, because I mean, this story it's mildly interesting to me. I mean, if this had happened 15 years ago, I would have been like, who the fuck is DB Cooper? But the fact that this is 1971 and it's like 50 years later, and DB Cooper is almost certainly dead in real life.
Gotta be.
It's just like, let's put this one to rest, okay? When they finally get to the FBI guy who's like, yeah, we're shutting the case down. We didn't want to, but It's like, yeah, let's shut the movie down too, motherfucker.
Yeah. At least it's not long. At least it's like an hour and 20 something minutes. I don't even think it was a full
Oh my God,
hour
but
and a half long.
But it felt like the
documentary.
longest hour and 20 minutes of my life. Ugh.
I know. You would think with 4 suspects that, let's just say 90 minutes. 4 suspects, that's 27 and a half minutes each. No, it's 22 and a half minutes each. Should have been fucking brisk. Nope.
You'd think.
Nope.
You know, I will say, so it's very clear that the filmmaker had a thesis that he wanted to revolve around, and he does, and he says it literally in the film when he says to the writer, Bruce, the sandwich guy, he's like, all these people, sandwich man. He says these people all have a DB Cooper shaped hole in their lives. And so clearly that's what he's kind of, because he asks a lot of leading questions. And the thing of it is that I'm sure a lot of, directors and filmmakers, when they're making a documentary film, do ask leading questions, but you don't often hear it on camera. So when you are putting yourself on camera audio wise, you leave it open for us to judge and to critique. And so it's very clear that that's who he's going for. And this film does have a lot of colorful characters, and a lot of people who have staked a lot of their lives and invested in the fact that no, my friend is DB Cooper. No, my uncle is. No, my husband was. Like, all of these things. And it's just really sad. Like, it's really sad. And I also am reminded of the part where the other author talks about how he was the only one to have access to the FBI files. And he said, I thought I was going to crack the case wide open because I'd have all this time. And he's like, and there were just hundreds and thousands of, letters and poems and tip-offs and pranks. And, people are just so invested in this. And it's weird. It's sad and it's weird.
Sad and weird, the DB Cooper story. Directed by Megan Kearns.
The true mystery has been solved.
Of the sandwich.
Right. I don't know, maybe turkey on whole wheat. That's white bread, by the way.
There's a whole special featurette on the sandwich.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. We're spreading enough. When we get off, everybody listening and my 2 lovely co-hosts, there's a video of this old Irish dude making a sandwich that I will find and show you guys. And it is one of the most fascinating videos you've ever seen. And it's almost like unintentional ASMR. And it's like 6 minutes long. And it's so much more interesting than the mystery of DB Cooper. So anyway.
Fair enough.
All right. Do we have any last minute thoughts?
No.
Or not last minute.
No.
Last
I do kind of want to
closing thoughts on the mystery.
I do kind of want to have a sandwich now, but I can do that later.
Yeah. And Evan, you think it's number 1. I think it's number 4, but anyway, not that I think it matters. Oh wait, no, number 3. I can't remember.
Enough.
I don't even care. So, all right, let's move on to our third film, which is Princess of the Row. So Princess of the Row is directed and co-written by Max Carlson. It's also co-written by A. Sean Austin. And it is about a girl, Alicia, who lives with her father, who is a veteran, and he has a brain injury and is struggling with PTSD, and they live on the street. And she wants to keep living with him, even though her social worker and other people are, saying she should live somewhere else because he can't take care of her. And that's basically the premise of the film.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
What did we think of it? We think of this.
I thought it was really good. I was pretty moved by this movie. It has a heartbreaking ending.
Yeah, it does.
And there's some very emotionally intense scenes in the film. And it was funny because we were watching it and we paused to get up to get a drink or something. And I was saying, this movie's, it's heavy subject matter, but it's not going to intense places.
Boy.
And those are famous last words, because right after that was when she ended up with the guy who was trying to pimp her out in the attempted rape scene, which was like, holy fucking shit. And there were just at least a couple of other scenes that I was just, the scene where the the white college kids are trying to beat up her
Oh,
dad.
and pee on him. Oh
trying.
my
They
God.
did beat him up. I mean, he
Yeah, they
eventually kicked the shit
Well,
out of them.
He fucking took them. Yeah, he kicked the shit out of anybody who tried to mess with him or his
Yeah.
daughter.
There were, I mean, I feel like this movie was really a mixed bag. I felt like the first time that guy showed up who ended up trying to pimp her out, the first time I saw him, I was just like, what's this guy's story? And I thought this movie had a lot of tonal problems. Like it just vacillated
Yeah.
too easily between like heavy drama and then sentimentality and then melodrama.
Mhm.
And they also, now I don't know a lot about traumatic brain injuries. I'm just going to throw that right out there. But it seemed like Bo's injury was very convenient plot wise to be really bad when they needed it to be bad. And then he would like have some moment of, I don't know, clarity or something like, I don't even know what you would say. Like he would always like save them at just the right time. And it's like, this is just a little pat. And also he always remembers to bring the hat with her photo around. Like he never forgets that. Like, so it just, a lot of things just didn't add up to me. I mean, I actually do know one person with a traumatic brain injury who has recovered very well, but still has the occasional problem, but it's nothing like this. So, I mean, my experience is completely limited and that criticism may not be valid. I don't know. But like I said, I did feel like whenever Bo needed to like move the plot forward in some way, he did.
I can see what you're saying
Mhm.
there. I kind of agree. There were moments where it seemed like he was more coherent, and it seemed to work well into whatever was happening in plot
Right.
wise.
Well, and the fact that he knew that at the end that his daughter was like he switches hats.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
does.
it's kind of like he switches hats. He takes her photo out of the one hat and puts it in a new hat, and he's like, "Yay, I'm sad, but she's going to have a good life." And it's like, I really don't know if that's how this movie would really end. I mean,
Yeah.
it is sad. It's not like a happy ending, but it's
No.
also not like the fucking worst, you know? So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
this film is so. Dave, I had a lot of problems like you. Like I do think there are a lot of tonal issues. I do think it's clearly coming from a place of empathy for these characters and for
Sure.
people who are homeless and for veterans and and that's really nice. But it's interesting. As I was watching the film, I was like, this feels like it was directed and written by people who don't really necessarily know this subject. Like this doesn't really feel personal, and it's not. And that's I should say part of it is. So I read an interview with the director and he said that his either his father or his grandfather had dementia. And so he, kind of infused that into the story. Not that a brain injury is the same thing.
Yeah.
But he grew up in LA and he would, he knew about Skid Row and he would pass Skid Row and he was like, I wonder, what the people are like who live there and how can they be living there next to all this, unbelievable wealth. And so that's why he wanted to make this story. And, and that's fine. That's great that you want to tell that story. But at the same time, it just, to me, it rang hollow that it's coming from someone who doesn't really know this world and didn't really experience it. So that was kind of my problem. And that also fed into the issues, tonal issues. But I will say this movie did make me cry a lot. And,
oh, sure.
and
yeah, it choked me up.
and Taylor Buck, who plays Alicia, I think is really great in this. And her relationship with her father is so sad, and it is really so touching that she wants to, protect him and still, and be with him and take care of him. And it's, it's very predictable when she says, she says something in the beginning of the film about how, oh, we just needed to get you away from that place and all that crazy stuff is going to go away. And it's like, oh, no. But then obviously by the end, when she's talking to Ana Ortiz, the social worker, she's like, I thought it was my fault. I thought I could fix it. And no, of course it's not. But yeah, but so this is a really heartbreaking film. And there were parts I really liked. But yeah, there were other parts that just felt very jarring and didn't really ring true for me.
I have a question about the movie's timeline. You keep seeing flashback scenes, and I might have just missed this. Maybe it's explained very well. Flashback scenes of when pre-brain injury when she's younger and they're like hanging out in the home, but then he gets arrested at the end. Like I wasn't following that. So did he already have the brain injury? Like what happened? Because, usually when you have an injury, forget it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It just seemed like
the timeline didn't work.
Yeah, the timeline didn't work. It's just like, why if he's got the traumatic brain injury and he's capable of taking care of her, as it would seem in these earlier scenes when he's, they're living in a house and, et cetera, or an apartment, wherever they were. And then all of a sudden he's arrested. I'm not sure why.
He said he hurt somebody.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just vague though. It's just like he hurt. Okay. Did he like punch somebody because they were trying to like kidnap his kid? Or did he just like go crazy? Did he like pick up a golf club and smack somebody in the store? Like what happened?
Yeah.
That I agree. That wasn't well defined in the film. It also wasn't clear when in the timeline she lost her mother.
Mhm.
Right.
And whether that was after or sometime before he was arrested. It's not clear to me.
I'm so glad that you brought up the mother, because that's actually something I wanted to talk about that I think is another, for me, huge problem with the film. So the father and Bo and Alicia are a Black father and a Black daughter. And to me, there are some very uncomfortable stereotypes about Black people in this film. The fact that her aunt, who is supposed to be taking care of her, and Alicia's like, yelling at her about, picking up the welfare check. And that's the only reason she's taking care of her. And then it gets violent between them. And then the fact that her mother, was either, an alcoholic or a drug addict and, died because because she also uses a lot of fantasy metaphors. And she's talking about how the mother, drank the poison or took the poison or whatever it was. And so and I'm not saying that you can't have, characters of color, and particularly Black characters who, live like that. But there's just, again, there's something about it. It's just so often that we see these kinds of tropes on screen. So if you're going to do them, I feel like you have to be really conscientious and give some complexity to your characters. And there was something about it that just kind of made me uncomfortable.
I would like to say, though, as much as the aunt character was like, what the fuck is this? She's played by Tabitha Brown, who in real life is a delightful person. So it was a very good portrayal, very good acting, because you're like,
yes.
This is not the Tabitha Brown I fucking have ever seen.
No. The acting, I think, is great in this film. I think the acting is really well done. And I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just like throwing that out there because I'm pretty sure that Tabitha Brown is like the nicest person who ever lived. This is some good acting, but anyway.
Yeah, we should also talk about speaking of acting, we should talk about Martin Sheen in this.
Mm.
Oh, yikes. Okay, or not.
No,
He's just being difficult.
I wouldn't say, I kind of have a problem with the Sheens generally.
Okay.
The Estevezes I'm okay with. The Sheens,
not so much.
Well, it's I don't know what it is. It's like Martin Sheen, I don't think you can accuse him of being insincere, but there is a sort of, for lack of a better term, sheen to all of his acting. Whereas, I always felt like, and you're going to disagree with me, I'm sure, just based on acting quality alone, Emilio Estevez, I always thought he was bringing it more, even if he's not the greatest actor. I'm just saying that. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but please.
Well, what I was going to say that I guess is not so much about Martin Sheen's acting, although I did, again, cry when he talks about, and it was predictable, but when he talks about how their daughter passed away and that's why they never had, he and his wife had a lot of foster children, but they were always boys because they didn't have a girl. And Alicia asks why they didn't have a girl. And I was like, oh, I bet there was a dead daughter. And there was. But what I do really like about his portrayal as a, foster parent is I like how supportive he is of Alicia's writing. And it's a very stark contrast when she goes to another family in LA so she can be close to her father. And it's a rich couple. And the guy asks, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she's like, oh, a writer. And she's so excited to talk about it. And he's like, ugh. he's like, that's a tough life, and is like shitty about it. And it's so refreshing that Martin Sheen's character is, so and he's a writer too, but he's so supportive, and he gives her, feedback on one of her short stories and has a typewriter for her in her room. And it's just, those little touches are really nice. And, it's very clear she should be in a very nurturing, supportive environment for her creativity and not a stifling environment, because that's exactly what she needs.
Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately, I'm sure, part of her decision to go live, with Martin Sheen and his wife, and to know that to do that, she has to leave her father behind, which just fucking sucks.
It's gutting.
It's a gutting, just absolutely gutting ending.
Yeah, no, that ending was brutal. I also kind of liked how there's a fantasy scene in the beginning, and then it's revisited at the end. When she's untying the unicorn, it kind of reminded me in certain ways, loosely, of Beasts of the Southern Wild. Also about a little black girl, and her father struggling with mental illness and issues. But yeah, and some fantastical elements. But anyway, yeah. But no, that ending was gutting. I actually really liked the ending. Well, maybe not the end, because like you said, Dave, what's going on with Bo? But yeah.
Yeah, and then he smiles at the end.
That was what.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess he's happy that she's going to get the care she needs, because it's very clear that at least in his moments of lucidity, he knows he can't take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, he says that thing to her in the hotel about how he knows that she's going to leave him someday, and he's good with that. He understands that she can't take care of him forever.
Oh my God, so sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad it wasn't better. Hey.
Yeah, for me, this is another film that had some really fantastic, beautiful moments, and really great acting. But yeah, there were some issues for me.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts before we move on to our final film?
I'm tapped out on Princess of the Row.
Let's move on to Uncle Frank.
All right.
Uncle Frank, yeah. Uncle Frank, yeah. Sorry. I was saying off mic that every time they would talk about Uncle Frank, or we would talk about seeing Uncle Frank, I can't help but think of the Pearl Jam song Dirty Frank. And so it's just it's been in my head for days. Uncle Frank here. Just Eddie Vedder screaming, well, Dirty Frank in the song, Uncle Frank in my head.
Okay. So yes, I actually love a musical interlude, and I love your musical interludes, Dave. And I love that was the perfect segue to Uncle Frank.
Yes.
Yeah. So Uncle Frank is written and directed by Alan Ball and stars Paul Bettany and Sophia Lillis. And who would like to do the summary?
Oh, I got it right here in front of me.
Great.
In 1973, when Frank Bledsoe and his 18-year-old niece, Beth, take a road trip from Manhattan to Creekville, South Carolina for the family patriarch's funeral, they're unexpectedly joined by Frank's lover, Wally, which is not, I mean, yes, that's all true.
That is true.
But the movie is about a lot more than that.
Oh my, is it?
Right.
And
coming of age, coming out.
Yep.
It's
dead people, dead parents, suicide, whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Yep. Homophobia.
Oh boy, yeah. Lots of homophobia.
And I'm just going to go out here on a limb and say, unfortunately, I saw every beat in this movie coming. So
yeah,
that was kind of a bummer, because I was really hoping, because I swear to you, I'm watching this movie going like, who the fuck is Uncle Frank? Why do I know who this actor is? And then I finally looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, it's Paul Bettany. Okay, now it makes sense. The hairline and like, it still sounds like him, even though he's doing a different accent. But hey, good work, Paul Bettany. You had me fooled.
Yeah. He's a great actor.
Good performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sophia Lillis, she's fine. She actually should be in it more than she is, considering it kind of, she's sort of the crux of the, like everything sort of revolves around her in a way.
Right. This is Beth's.
Yeah.
I would say this is Beth's story. She's got the opening voiceover and the closing voiceover. The closing voiceover being entirely unnecessary in a way that just, why can't we just enjoy this moment and live in the moment on its own?
No.
We don't need
we have to tell
somebody
you.
to wrap this shit up.
We need to tell you about it. We need to tell you how to feel.
Tell me how you tell me how to feel, please, voiceover.
Telling you, voiceover is so unneeded in most cases.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
definitely
Except for
ended here.
Apocalypse Now, but then it still sucks. Anyway, were there any moments in this movie, just before we get into how, you know, the story and blah, blah, that made you, that you were like, this movie, this works here. It's turning a corner. Or did you guys like it better than I did?
I think I liked it better than you did.
Fair
I
enough.
think I liked it better than you did, but I also could see everything coming, like every single moment coming. So, and I think
Mhm.
for me, I think the beginning is really good, like really strong. And I think it's really, really good. I feel like until they get back to Creekville. I think it's a good film until they get to Creekville. And then for me, it doesn't quite work.
Then it just sort of starts hitting all of the estranged family beats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Although I did like, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, McDeesey,
Oh,
Peter
he's
McDeesey,
so
who plays Wally.
Good.
I've always liked that actor
Mhm.
who's in a lot of Alan Ball's stuff. And
They're together.
yes, they are.
Mhm.
And I really just liked his portrayal of Wally as
Yes.
just this sweet, gentle guy
Mhm.
who just didn't have an unkind thing to say about anybody. I
Mhm.
just really, that I found really refreshing. A lot of the other stuff, I was kind of like,
He is my favorite, hands down,
Mhm.
my favorite part of the film. He is wonderful. I love his performance. He's captivating,
Mhm.
magnetic. He is engaging. He just infuses that role with so much joy and warmth. Yeah, I loved him in that. And I loved, it's just, whenever he was on screen, I was more engaged, more delighted. He was great. And I also, so the actor is a Lebanese man, and he's playing a man from Saudi Arabia in this. And I like that we're talking, like that he talks about homophobia in his country, and you know, and how
Mhm.
horrible it is. I mean, because you know, obviously homophobia is horrible here too, but you know, it's different kind of horrible. But yeah, but I
Right.
loved his performance so much.
Yeah. He's just really fantastic, and he really is a joy to watch anytime he's on screen. And I know, I just love the way that he sees all of Frank's flaws and loves him
Mm-hmm.
anyway. I mean, and even when Frank loses his temper and he's been drinking and he punches Wally, and you know, like that could be a deal breaker, you know, like that's abuse. But like the way that he comes back with love and support, and when they embrace in front of the tombstone of the guy that Frank was Frank's lover when he was younger and committed suicide. That moment I thought was really powerful. The way that they were kind of framed when they were on the ground embracing there, that got to me.
I also thought that Paul Bettany did good crying in that scene.
He did. Yeah.
I thought that was
Mhm.
like, if you were going to hug a tombstone in a cathartic moment in a movie like this, you did it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds really callous, but I was thinking,
True.
yeah, I was just thinking this scene is actually really well done.
Yeah, it was really powerful, really effective. Yeah.
It's really too bad. I also, and man, when he walked when Frank, in, I guess you would call it the present, in 1973, after he's been outed horribly cruelly by his
Oh,
fucking pissant coward of a father,
in the will, in the
will,
will.
which, you know, and that was the thing. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen with the reading of the will exactly, but I know it's going to be bad.
Right.
And then it was.
Because he hadn't been outed yet. and
Right.
so you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but then they're like, we got to read the will. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But then that happens, and he walks down to the pier where his, first love drowned himself, and starts taking off his clothes, and then Wally and Beth find his clothes on the pier. And I was just like, well, the movie's got like 20 minutes to go. He didn't kill himself. What the fuck is this? And then there's this like cheap, like, oh my God, where's Uncle Frank? Did he kill himself? And then he just walks into the room like, I went for a swim. And I was just like, fuck this movie for putting the audience through that bullshit that you knew was going to turn out exactly this way. Oh, it was so fake to me. It really made me mad. I mean, really made me mad. Fuck, I saw this movie like
Apparently.
3 days ago. Still,
Yeah.
You're still
know?
seething about it.
it was just so awful. It was just like,
It
come on,
really
because you know he's not dead.
Very-
You know he's not.
It's unnecessary to
Right.
torture the audience like that, and it's manipulative. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but Margot Martindale, thank God she was in this movie.
See, I would have said that about Judy Greer. Thank God she's.
Her too. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm curious how, because like I already said that kind of like by the time they get to the funeral, for me the film doesn't work quite as well, except for the graveyard scene between Wally and Frank. But what did you guys think about the family's reaction once he's been outed?
I think that this is the nicest Southern 1973 family that ever lived.
Yeah. I was shocked that so many people in the family were okay. I mean, we knew that Neva, his sister, knew about him and loved him.
Yeah.
And yeah, just about everyone else was a wild card. So I was surprised that only Neva's husband was the only person having problems, really,
I think
accepting this. And the
Yeah.
aunt, the shitty aunt, but she had the spider in her hair, so that was fine.
yeah. I think that unfortunately you're kind of written into a corner because it's like, all right, you know, the father was an asshole, bigot, piece of shit. Are you going to make all of his other blood relations bigot, asshole, pieces of shit, especially in the movie's last 10 minutes? You can't. So, like, unfortunate.
Yeah.
It was like, it has to be this way, even though there's no fucking way it would be that way.
Mhm.
That being said, I am actually, you know, we were talking last week about how when I was watching Happiest Season, I kept waiting for something horrible to happen, like physically to one of the characters. And I'm so glad that, you know, no one just like pulled out a shotgun and blew Frank away, because like that, I just couldn't have handled, even though it rang false, I couldn't have handled hatred after watching this movie for 95 minutes or however long it is. I just couldn't have
Mhm.
done it. So I guess it's better that it was not so realistic.
I mean, like I said, speaking of Happiest Season, even if it's a little pat and it's wish fulfillment, I'll take it. I will. This year, I will absolutely take wish fulfillment.
Yeah, you have a point.
I think here's the thing though, and I hear what you guys are saying. I think this would have felt, and not that I'm glad he wasn't tortured any more than he already had been, but I think this would have felt more like wish fulfillment if he hadn't just abused his partner, and if we also had
Mhm.
his first lover commit suicide, you know. So
Mm.
I
Yes.
with the juxtaposition of those things, this did not feel like wish fulfillment at all. It felt like I was like, phew, I dodged a bullet. We're getting let off the hook here. And so, yeah,
I can see that point of view too, you know?
yeah.
You know. I respond to things so viscerally that I just didn't. Why would you go ahead and have like a more nuanced thought, Dave? I mean, Jesus, you know, so any spray.
Yeah. I loved that, you know, his mother, Margot Martindale, pulls Wally aside after she, you know, meets him and is like, well, we're talking, you know, Frank, get out of here. I thought that was adorable. It's like, okay, now the interrogation is on. Although I wished the mother expressed that she knew, you know, as a mother, she knew, which I know is a lot of times can be the case from friends I've talked to, like who came out to their parents and their parents were like, yeah, duh, dude. I already knew and I loved you, which I think is a great sentiment. I just wished that if she knew and she knew how bigoted the father was, that maybe she had maybe some way of sticking up for Frank a little bit more.
Well, I think she did, because I mean, in that scene, you know, when the Big Daddy, or not Big Daddy, but Daddy Mac,
Daddy Mac.
yeah, when he's getting the presents and he shits all over, you know, Frank's present before you even know why he's shitting all over his present. And, you know, she's like, well, actually, I'm the one who does the shoe shining. So that's a great present. Thanks so much, Frank. So it is, to me, that was kind of laying the groundwork that she probably did stick up for him in those smaller moments, like maybe not the giant moments, like she, you know, arguably
Mhm.
could have or should have, but she was sticking up for him in those, you know, smaller moments, and probably had done that his whole life. So that's kind of the sense I got, but I do know what you mean.
I forgot about that scene. I forgot about her reaction. I remember Stephen Root being like, blah, 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 shoe shine,
Yeah.
or whatever he said.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great scene, and I thought it was really telling. And I think the beginning is so incredibly strong. Like watching the way Sophia Lillis is like slowly moving throughout the house, and everything is so frenetic and chaotic, and then it slows down even more when she sees Frank, reading alone on the porch, and he's the only one who's like sitting still and not like yelling or acting wildly or, kind of flailing his arms around like, the kids or other people in the house. So it was a very interesting contrast. So anyway, I thought the beginning was really, really strong. And I think the road trip part is great. And I think the acting, the performance is really, really strong and great. For me, it's just a little bit of a melodramatic ending, but overall, I think it's a good film.
Agreed.
But I also do agree with you, Dave. I know what your problems are, and I don't think you're wrong. I think I agree with you on those too.
Well, okay. As long as everybody agrees that I'm correct, fine. Any spray. Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts that we want to share on this film?
That was some dirty river water or lake water they were swimming in. But otherwise,
Yes.
I was like, that is some brown water. Anyway.
I liked that their bearded dragon's name was Barbara Stanwyck.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I also love that when Frank is telling Beth, at the time, Betty, he's like, oh, you can, she's like, I don't like my name. And he's like, you can rename yourself. And he's like Liz, like clearly Liz Taylor. And he mentioned someone else who's like clearly very much a gay icon. And I'm like, of course. Of course, he's naming all the divas.
I kind of wish Sophia Lillis hadn't gotten, I feel like she got swallowed by the movie a little bit.
Yeah, she does. She definitely does. I know. And that's the thing too, because her going, moving to New York and going to NYU and, dating that douchey guy for a hot minute and who's we find out is gay and he's hitting on Frank and she thinks he's her boyfriend anyway. But it's like, I really wanted to know about her life and, did she become a writer? Is that why she's narrating this? Like, what's going on and what happened to her? And we don't really know anything. And we get that very pat ending, of the narration, but like, it doesn't tell us anything about her.
Yes, you know what this movie needed, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. It needed the Stand By Me framing device. Where you see her as a writer.
Maybe it did.
I don't know if it did, but
I don't know. I think, but I think you're right. I think also Sophia Lillis and Paul Bettany needed more interactions. And I know that might sound weird because they're in the film together a lot, but I think we needed some more conversations between them.
Sure.
Yeah, some more one-on-one time. Although I liked that they kind of split off and she went with Waleed for a little while and got to talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one last thing I realize I do have something else to say. Yeah. The fact that Frank is a recovering alcoholic and he, starts drinking again and this is clearly not the first time because Wally says, I won't go through this again. And, and he's, putting the bottles down the sink and everything like that's all important. But I feel like it kind of, again, just wraps up a little too neatly. And I'm like, and I don't know, maybe we're supposed to not think that, like maybe it's open-ended. So who knows what's going to happen, but I don't know. It didn't feel that way. It felt a little tidy to me.
Fair.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, Evan, maybe tidy endings are exactly what this shit show of 2020 needs.
Yeah. That's what I'm going with. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Colin Quinn. All right. Well, let's do our recap then of everything. So, Animals, you can get on VOD. Would we recommend that people see it, Evan?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna pass on Animals.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm probably gonna say the same thing. I think there are some good things with it, but yeah, there are other movies you could probably watch first. Okay, The Mystery of D.B. Cooper, that will be on HBO. Yikes!
Make a sandwich instead of watching that.
Make a sandwich or watch it. Make a sandwich and watch DB Cooper. Why not?
No.
Yeah, don't watch it.
Don't watch this. I'm gonna say don't watch this movie.
Have a sandwich instead.
Have a sandwich.
Yeah, I think you have to really be into DB Cooper to want to watch this.
Right.
And if you already have HBO, fine. But I don't think you need to go out of your way to see this.
Right. I'd agree with you.
I was like, I'm trying to think. I might amend my animal suggestion that, like, if it's on, just watch it, but
Yeah.
don't go out of your way to rent it. But Mystery of DB
Right.
Cooper, I don't even think you should watch it.
Yeah.
Even-
It is on
is
HBO. I think I mentioned.
Yes, it is on HBO, like we said. Princess of the Row, that is going to be on VOD as well. Would we recommend that?
I would not. Sorry.
No apologies necessary.
Fair enough. I liked it. I'd recommend it.
I don't know. Watch it, sure.
Wow.
Don't watch it. I don't know. Although there are some good performances in this. So sure, why not? And then Uncle Frank. This was going to be on Amazon Prime.
Watch Happiest Season instead.
I mean, if that's the option, yeah, watch Happiest Season over all of these.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I actually would say, yeah. I mean, I think there are enough good things here that it's worth watching.
Yeah. I think that the two lead
Mhm.
performances, and we'll just go ahead and say that Wally and Frank are the leads. I think that they're worth watching.
Yes, agreed. Would you agree, Evan?
Hmm. I would agree. Yeah. I'd say see Uncle Frank.
All right.
Uncle Frank here. Thank you.
All right. Well, so those are our picks for this week. Or not really our picks. Those are the films. I don't know what's wrong with me. Dave, your musical interlude has...
I'm sorry.
No, don't be, but you've derailed me again. I just can't handle it. So that's our show for this week. We want to give a huge, huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you so much for everything you do. You make us sound great week after week. So thank you.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece anywhere you get podcasts. Look for us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find us on our website at spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spoiler Piece Theater. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at Spoiler Piece. So please come follow us, like our posts, tweet at us, you name it. We are there. We want to hear from you.
Mhm.
You can email us and tell us you like these films. Tell us you don't like these films. You know, do you agree, disagree? We want to know. And so you can email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can even call us at
862-21-PEACE.
leave us a voicemail message. We love a voicemail message. And if
We do.
that we do. And if you like the show, please rate and review us. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. It will take you to your platform of choice. We do have a slight preference, though, for Apple Podcasts, just because it helps us out a tad more. But wherever you rate and review us, we would be extremely appreciative.
Mhm.
And if you really, really like the show, please come and join us on our Patreon. This week, we talked about our poll winner for November, and that was Smoke Signals. So please come and listen to that episode, which is great. We really enjoyed talking about it. You can join our Patreon for $1 a month. You can join for $5 a month. And for $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes like the Smoke Signals episode. You also get to vote in monthly polls. And for $10 a month, you get to tell us what to watch for a bonus episode. You get to tell us what to watch each and every month. So that's a pretty cool feature.
I agree.
I love that you agree. So my name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionS World and on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies. And by the way, I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
Yeah, you can. We totally forgot to thank our patrons.
That's true.
That we did. So real quick before we go, I'd like to say thank you to Bill Scahan, Sean Pensionar, Christopher Jensen, Bob Chipman, Charles Nash, Davida Margolin, Zach Pigeon, Chris Wilkinson, Elisa, Max Colville, Shona Glasgow, Rory Glenn, Shelley M. McCaskill, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Deirdre Crimmins, and Shauna Harris.
Thanks,
Thank you
patrons.
so much, patrons. You rock.
And thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.